son, where'd you find this?
Buckle up, buttercups. It's time to get down to business. Oh, yeah. It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Totally legit.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. And today we've got a very special treat. We have our first guest from the Intelligence Services, Mr. JJ Brun, a retired spy from the Canadian Armed Forces Intelligence Branch. Welcome to the show, Operative 431.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Thank you.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, thank you. My pleasure being here.
So,
nice
it's just a quick little intro and then we get right into it. There's supposed to be applause, but I guess that sound effect switched up for this one. So that's a special treat for you this time.
Thank you.
I've had a bunch of friends who are involved in the military in the States. Some people in civilian defense, like working as a contractor for the military, but I've never had somebody who's in intelligence. So my first question for you is what made you want to pursue that, and then how did you go about becoming a member of intelligence?
Well, I was 5 years in the military, so for me, joining the military was an exit strategy in regards to I was at university, had a fight with Dad, and I said, well, that's the last time you'll ever have to pay something for me. And 2 weeks later, I'm in Saint-Jean-Richelieu, Quebec, in the Canadian Forces boot camp. And I graduated, and then from there, the easiest entry was to join the infantry. So I joined the French regiment, the Royal 22nd Regiment, le Royal 22e Régiment. And after 5 years, I realized that this career-wise, it's just hard on the body, and you can't really transit in regards to, I don't want to do like 40 years of this.
Sure. Yeah.
So I was looking for an exit strategy again. So for me, I had a very good military career because it takes you 8 years to be a senior NCO, a sergeant in the Canadian infantry. Back then, it took you 8 years. And I did it in less than 4 years. So that became a blessing, and it also became a curse at the same time because the old guard didn't like the fact that you did not do your time like everybody else. But I was different. I was bilingual. I was bigger, stronger. I was computer literate. So that was a new type of soldiering back then, embracing technology. And at one point, I was the acting RSM as a regimental sergeant major, and I booked myself a meeting with the career manager. And the thing that interested me was the intelligence branch. I thought that, hey, if I get trained in this field, maybe that will give me some options down the road after 20 years. If I want to diversify, if I want to do something else, it's a career or it's a qualification that might have some interest with other agencies. So That's sort of like got me to go in that lane. And I was recommended for quick selection, the fact that I was bilingual, and it helped the fact that I progressed rapidly in the ranks. Because I had 2 advanced promotions. So as opposed to 8 years, 4 years, you're a sergeant. Oh, you have potential or you have the benefit of the doubt. And I got a quick entry within the intelligence branch. And from there, it was for us during the Cold War. So we had to learn everything by heart, as in we didn't have access to AI like you have today, Google search, or we were the Google search, as in we had to go to the university libraries and find those books and the research. So we became really, really good at researching and memorizing. You had to memorize everything back then, so that when you saw a road wheel of a tank, you would actually be able to know which type of tank it was. And if that tank, if you see X amount of nuts on that road wheel, well, that represents a T-72. And if a T-72 is there, then it has to be these regiments. And if that regiment's there. So that was sort of like we had to learn everything by heart in regards to the Army side of things, the Air Force, the Navy, just looking at a periscope, knowing what type of submarine that was. So it was a very interesting mystique, curiosity that always, was in the back of my mind. It's not at all what I thought it was, because the only frame of reference that I had back then was the James Bond series.
Which would be most people's at that time, yeah.
And noticing that, didn't have the budget to do what I needed to do. Didn't know how to really play poker like he would. Didn't have the nice ladies. And for some reason, traveling overseas, I always had to be stopped at the border, which James Bond never had that problem. So it's not the same in regards to the profession. It's a career path. I never saw myself as a spy. It was more you're an intelligence operator, you're an intelligence staff officer, because you get trained. So my number, Operative 431, means that I was the 431st one to graduate spy school back then in Canada. I've gotten a lot of specialized training with different countries, the States, a lot of training also in the UK within their intelligence organization. So it was not like I was in high school and I had a strategic plan to go into that. It was more of I did not know what to do when I was in high school. You would have always these questions. So what do you want to do? What do you want to do? A better question, James, would have been, what do you want to become? See, that would have been a better question, because I don't know. I've never taken an audit. I never knew my strengths or what I bring to the world. So maybe that's why at university, the challenges of fitting in. But then in the military, it became a little bit easier that I was wired for that type of environment, or they were looking for my type of temperament style, my personality, my character, could be what they were looking for and why I excelled in that environment. And then when I re-engineered into the intelligence branch, it became fascinating to me in regards to, all the different application that it has. And the fact that I was bilingual, because French is my first language, second is the third. English is the second, and I speak Discanese. That will be the third. So it became really interesting in regards to where you can specialize. In the last 10 years of my military career, I specialize in the field of human intelligence, so understanding human dynamics, communication, how to connect across cultures. And that was fascinating. And very insightful. And I have 2 operational tours underneath my belt, so I can apply, or I have been able to apply a lot of the training that I've received, whether it's in my military career or in my sole entrepreneurial career. And it's just fascinating that you're the sum of all your experiences. That's what we have in common, as in your experiences and my experience. We're the sum of all our experiences. We are also the sum of all of our ancestors. We're hardcore DNA. We're wired a certain way. But when you start looking at this as human beings, as in some of the experiences and the sum of all their ancestors, you get to appreciate other people and respect their model of the world. It is just different, and you don't take any preferences. It's just different. And it's easier to celebrate people's differences versus tolerate people's differences when you have a model of reference. Quite often, in high school, they never taught us how to interact with people. How do we engage?
Yeah, certainly not.
How do you connect? How do you establish and maintain rapport?
Yeah.
So I had to go and get this on the civilian side to acquire these traits, and it sure would have been nice. But now that I had this information, I was able also to raise my son and my daughter and have a wife that we are business partners, and we've been married now for 31 years.
Wow.
And it's because we have a model of reference where we can celebrate our differences versus tolerate our differences. And in today's world, it's hard. It's like you're with us or you're against us, and it's like, oh my gosh, really? Why can't I just be me, not be judged? So it's not an easy environment. And by having a model of reference, at least this way, you can engage into a meaningful conversation and influence and lead others to a desired outcome. So it was not a big plan on my part. It's more of, this is what happened, now what? But I do believe that people will go through life, as in you'll go through your first career, and then there'll be a moment in time where you're going to go into another lane. You're going to transit. It's very rare that people stay in that same lane for 30 or 40 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you bring up a couple good points. The fact that you were kind of technologically literate in ways that maybe the older guard wasn't. I'm interested to know, like, from the point at which you entered to the point at which you exit, what were the big things that you saw in intelligence as a whole, and like how it was conducted, being, you know, during the Cold War and then really the cusp of the information age?
People are pretty much set in their ways. Not everyone has a growth mindset. So what I've experienced at one point was the old guard, as in they're very fixed in their way of doing business, of this is how it's done, and not having that growth mindset of, you know, looking at it in a different way. When I went down to Atlanta, Georgia, I got certified as a consultant, so a certified human behavior consultant with a company. And I was told by the president of that company, Dr. Robert A. Rome, he says, JJ, yes, let me show you how you can annoy 90% of the general population just by being yourself. And I'm like, what? See, I know, because in my career, I know that I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I'm not that easy to work with. I am so driven for results that if you're not going to get on board, I'm going to run over you, as in we are going to go from point A to point B, regardless, as in it's a challenge. I get motivated by a challenge.
We're going to complete this task.
Let's go. Let's just do. No, nothing around. And when he said that, as in he was able to read, to discern my temperament style. And I'm like, my likes and my dislikes. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. And I'm like, I'm annoying a lot of people. Yeah, but I get things done. What I was hearing from him is that I'm leaving 90% of business, of the sales, of the money on the table. Then I'm listening to him. He says, well, would you be willing, that's a choice, would you be willing to learn to say the same thing in a different way? What I got out of that, do you want to be more successful? Do you want to get better results? Do you want more sales or revenues? He says, yes. And I became a student because he showed me that I could connect with people by design and not by chance across cultures. So he applied a model. It's the 4 temperament model of human behavior. Now your audience will look into this. There's over 200 behavioral models out there to better understand human dynamics. Myers-Briggs, True Colors, Neo, StrengthsFinder, Enneagrams. There's just about 200 of these. There's a subject matter expert, Janine Fitzgerald. She took 13 years and she studied these 200 behavioral tools out there. Like, she's actually did the work, and I'm like, I did some work with her. I don't have to spend 13 years. I'm like, perfect. There's all these models. What she was advocating is for you to pick one and master it. So I opted for the 4 temperament model of human behavior. It's designed by William Moulton Marsden, and in psychology is referred to as the wellness model. We're just looking at the traits when they're grounded and when the traits are ungrounded. And with my operational tours across cultures, I remember the different cultures and when they were grounded and when they were ungrounded, and you can predict people's patterns, behavior.
Interesting.
And by knowing this, by having this, it's like, well, could that work also for my kids? Because I want to parent to the traits of my child and not to the traits of a sergeant major or a drill sergeant. That was my concern with my son and with my daughter. And by having that and by understanding the human capital as in what they bring to the universe, what they bring to the table, able to parent to those traits to help those traits to stay under control, right? And know when they're under control and out of control, and when to say something and when not to say something. So you wouldn't parent them the same way because they're different personalities, they're different characters, They have different likes. So you would train them or you would parent them, coach them, teach them according to how they're wired. So a truth spoken, this is what I've discovered when I was working with Dr. Robert Rome, a truth spoken is not as powerful as a truth that's been self-discovered. I can tell you all the benefits of a tool, but until you've actually discovered it for yourself, experienced it for yourself, and applied it for yourself, you're not going to retain it for yourself.
Yeah. Lead a horse to water kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, my first experience of that is that I was volunteered to go on an interrogator course in the UK. All I heard was, who wants to go to the UK?
Free trip. I'll take
well, that's what I'm like. I've never been to the UK.
Yeah, let's
wow,
go.
I'm going to take a flight overseas, civilian flight, not one of these military vehicles. I'm like, fantastic. And the Brits train differently. The realism that they have in their training was my first time experiencing it. The course started on a Saturday and it ended on a Saturday. It was 7 days, as in weekends means nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. So I'm there. I'm in the UK, get there. And it's a very much of a Harry Potter experience of taking the train, because there's no phone. It's just a piece of paper, and you really have to pay attention and listen. And it's a different dialect. It's English, but it has an accent as you're moving. And then, okay, this is where I'm supposed to come off. I get out, and it's just a shack. It's a shack, as in it's not like big lights, and it's just a little cabin. As in, okay, is there a phone where I can call a taxi? Because Uber does not exist.
Yeah, right.
And as the train was leaving, there was a taxi that came by, as in it's almost like they knew when they would arrive. And then I was trying to communicate with the taxi driver, and I couldn't understand one word. And he would say, right.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Super
And I just
thick accent. Yeah.
I showed a piece of paper. Can you bring me there? All right. So he could have brought me to the dark side. I don't know. But he dropped me.
Pig farm. Right, yeah, exactly.
An onion field. The smell of the processing. He dropped me right beside the manufacturing company, I guess. They were. I don't know what they were doing. Worcester sauce or whatever. It's like in an onion field, and I'm like. And then someone came out of a hidden area, and he was in uniform and a long rifle. Okay, that was a clue. I'm probably in the right place. And then I got challenged, shared my credentials. My name was on the list. That's when you want to have your name on the list. And then I proceeded to go on to that camp. And it's just everything was an eye-opener. Now, on the first day of the training, we come in, the class, and in the first hour, we're stripped naked, put into a cell, and interrogated. James, that was not on the agenda.
Yeah.
What does it say that?
This is a free, no trips free, I guess.
It's like you talk about shock and awe, as in, what the heck? Now, I'm so driven, I got to pass. I'm the only Canadian, and I'm a French Canadian, and I don't want to be a plug, as in I want to be one of the best, as in I want results. And they did what they call a harsh interrogation. And a harsh interrogation is they come right in front of your face and they yell at you for 9 minutes nonstop. A harsh. I don't know why this guy was so upset. But when you are in your birthday suit, you have nothing, and you have another guy right in your face, and he's just looking at you and degrading you, and the vocabulary. You're wearing his breath. I know what he had for breakfast.
Yeah.
And then after that 9 minutes is get dressed, get back in the classroom. I'm like, what the heck? Why did I volunteer for this? As I come out, because they were running 4 interrogations at the same time. They had 4 cells, and all of the participants, all 4 of us, we look at each other, and our heads goes down, and tail between your legs, and it's like, and you go back to the classroom. I was student number 3, and when everybody had gone through, they started debriefing us, and I was number 3. So okay, number 3, and then he starts saying everything that he got on me. And I'm like, I didn't even answer any questions. How did you? And he attributed this to something called BSA, Behavioral Symptom Analysis, which it takes its roots in neurolinguistic programming. You cannot not communicate. You communicate all the time, all the macro. And he was able to read me. He was prepared for the next interrogation because he knew my triggers. That's when I became a student. See, a truth spoken is not as powerful as a truth that's been self-discovered. Now I've discovered this, I'm like, I want more about that. I want to know more about this. How can I master this? How can I teach this to others? The faster you start teaching this to others, the faster you start assimilating this. So I became a student, and then I was trying to also teach other people what I've learned. So that was a big aha moment, just like learning about the different personas out there and identifying them and being able to decode one's preferred communication style. When I was working overseas in Bosnia and I wanted to train other people that were replacing me how to establish and maintain rapport, I created the rapport ladder. 4 rungs, as in what's the first thing you should do, what's the second, the third, and the fourth. So by mastering these 4 steps, you had a greater ability of connecting with people across cultures and for them to say yes to you more often when you're making a request. So all of these life character building moments, we're the sum of all our experiences. We have an opportunity then to apply and to share with others what we've learned along the way. And it just adds more value that we've made a difference with them moving forward.
Now, was understanding people's behavior and how to more effectively communicate has become, kind of a refined goal in your life now, like a target in your life. Was this something were you always interested in learning about other people's cultures and histories, or was this just a thing as you became more self-aware of your own self and your own, how you interact with the world, that you then you started taking other people's into consideration, if that makes sense?
I think the curiosity started in high school, right? As in, it could be as simple as trying to understand other people and how they don't see things the same way. Then you would be influenced. Going to high school for me was hard, as in some could just read something and retain it this way, and it's not my learning style. So for me, high school was hard until I discovered sports. My second year playing football, I can hit people. The third year, you prepare as in, okay, you're playing football, you're playing basketball after that, and then I'm the shot putter for the high school. Then I became the shot putter for the university when I was at Laurentian University. So it was always an interest in regards to, why can't you be normal? Like me, right? Why? So there's always been this fascination of or character building moment of not connecting. It could be dating, it could be building relationships on the field. And the fact that I excel in sports in high school, I was able to connect with other members because of what I was bringing to the team. But it's always been hard for me. So, and I think it's because I did not have a strong sense of self. And I think a lot of students don't have a strong sense of self, not knowing what you bring to the table, that your life matters, right? And you lose hope. But if you knew how you're wired, if you knew what your talents are, and here are the career path that you can choose in order to monetize and to have a lifestyle. Not everyone has to go to university. You go to university and you're going to come out of university with some people $150,000 debt.
Oh, yeah.
But you can go on the trade side of things. You can become an electrician. You can become a plumber. You can become whatever you want. And then you can generate $100,000, $200,000 a year in business. And things are so deductible as you run your own business. So Before it used to be that the blue collar was pushed down and we would elevate the white collar, and all of my parents and everyone my dad's age, they all wanted you to be an engineer or to be a doctor or to be a dentist and don't do what I do. And well, you're a self-made millionaire. You're an entrepreneur, Dad. As in, what's wrong with that? Right? As in, that's blue collar and that's white collar. It's like they're both good. And today, anybody that goes into those trades, oh my gosh, you're generating $50 to $75 an hour.
Well, just about every one of those trades, at least here in the States, is suffering. Like, we need plumbers, we need electricians. If you step up, you can make a lot of money,
and you can make a lifestyle. Your truck is deductible. There's so much, because I've done 20 years in the military. And when I started my company, now we're now in year 25, there's so many things that's deductible, right? That you have a lifestyle that you can enjoy. I have retreats. I have business retreats in Cancun. It's a business and quality of life is being more balanced. To go back to your question, it's not like there's always a curiosity, or like you're not fitting in. You're not, you don't, there's, I remember in high school, there's people that just have the gift of the gab. They knew what to say, when to say it, and the charisma, and they were like people magnet. They were just drawn to them. And that wasn't me. And because they had more popularity, then you think that maybe you're not as, on the same level as them. But then if you fast forward today, all of these people that were rock star in high school, you don't see them, as in they seem to have lost their identity,
or never found it.
Well, they're on their second, third, fourth divorce.
Exactly.
And it's like all the A students are working for the D students. All the B students are working for government. And it's like, well, wow. I like working with law enforcement, Revenue Canada, the Canada School of Public Service is a big client. The Mary Kay Cosmetics, Mary Kay. They're entrepreneurs, sole entrepreneur, providing them a how do you connect with people by design and not by chance. Before you offer a product, a service, an opportunity, you need to know before you show. Before you show that product, that service, that opportunity, before you present that idea in order for them to gain buy-in, you need to know which persona. So teaching them, there's always a pace perspective, 2 P's to decoding human capital. There's always a pace perspective, fast pace, slower pace. You cannot not communicate. People have a preference. So what is your preference? Fast pace, or is your preference lower pace? It could be 51% one side and 49% the other. But you're looking at the pace perspective. And once you've discerned that pace perspective, then it's like, well, are they more on a task side of life, or are they more on the people side of life? As in the task oriented, when they get up in the morning, they think about all the things they need to do today. But on the people side, when they get up in the morning, they think about all the people they're going to meet throughout their day. Oh, as they do their work. So when you're looking at your discerning, you're able to find where they fit into that model, that 4 temperament model. And it's a start point for us to engage into a conversation. If I know someone that is more outgoing and very task oriented, I know that persona, I can be more direct with that persona. And they would like for me to communicate in a firm manner. But if that persona is more reserved and people oriented, which is an opposite, then I know that persona prefers for us to build a relationship first. They must first like me before we can do business. And once the relationship is established, they would prefer for me to communicate in a friendly manner. So it's what I call the 4 F's. I have a talk that I did on that, as in how to successfully navigate hostile environments using the F word. So when you're discerning one's preferred communication style, you'll know that at one point you have to be firm in your communication. Other times you'll have to be friendly, right? Or fun, or factual. And when you're discerning one's preferred communication style, you can learn to say the same thing in 4 different ways so that your message gets across so they can receive it. not resist it. I wish we would teach this in high school.
Oh, yeah,
to
absolutely.
the kids, because one, they would make a better vocational directions, or they would select a better vocational direction, and that would avoid going to college or going to university and then changing their major the following year because it's not a right fit, because you don't have a strong sense of self. What I've noticed in the military, and specifically today, there's 4 levels of awareness that we need to gain. If you want to thrive, there's going to be 4 levels of awareness. The first one is environmental awareness. Well, that's a moment in time where we discover, experience something new. Everyone goes through environmental awareness. We went to school, high school, college, university, military school, contact handler, interrogator. That's environmental. A moment in time where you discover, experience something new. This will move you to situational awareness. And that's a moment in time where you get to apply what you discovered and experienced in an environment. So when I went to spy school in the UK to become a contact handler, by the way, James, is a person where he or she is sent into a hostile environment, where he or she has to cultivate sources within that environment and determines people's attentions and modify their behavior if and when required without without the use of any Jedi mind tricks. So for me, it was in Bosnia. I had to build relationships across cultures, different ethnicities, Croats, Serbs, and Muslims. And I had to present an idea in order for me to gain buy-in and for them to wear the team jersey.
Right.
So at that point, that's situational awareness. As in, I've just been to spy school. I've learned how to be a contact handler. That's environmental awareness. Now I'm on the ground, situational awareness. Nothing will prepare you. Nothing will prepare you like being on site. You've got all the training, but then you can look around and you can apply things and you know what not to apply. The third level is self-awareness. This is the moment in time where you protect yourself from yourself. You know your strengths and you know your blind spots. And you can protect yourself from yourself in times of need. Self-awareness is going to be key, because if you don't have self-awareness, you're going to go back to environmental awareness. I got to go back to school. Apply back in the situation. Okay, go back to school. And you keep on looping and looping and looping on this environment and this situation, what I call a TED moment, temporary enthusiasm disorder. You always think you need more training. You need more training. You need more training. You don't. You don't have a strong sense of self. Just do what you're wired for, and you will never burn out. Stay true to your core value. But self-awareness will propel you to the 4th and highest level, which is legacy awareness. And that is a moment in time where everything that you've invested in your life outlives your life. That brings meaning, as the more you seed into other people's lives, the more it adds value to your life. You're leaving a legacy behind. In the military, I've done a few things, I've built things, and somebody can take it and move it to the next level and move it to the next level. But I was at least part of that journey of that within the military to bring in that whole contact handler. We didn't have this in Canada before, but being the first one deployed, I came back, I wrote a paper on it, and then I assisted in running the first 2 contact handling course in Canada, and now there's a school. That's exactly what they do full time. So I was part of that journey. I left something behind. It will outlive me. Same thing with your kids. So legacy awareness is the highest level. That's where we want to finish. That's where we want to go. But you're not going to be able to get there unless you have a strong sense of self.
I'm interested to get your opinions. I've got 2 questions here. The first one would be, I would agree that most people today could benefit from practicing self-awareness, or at least just getting to self-awareness. But, social media seems to be really putting a hamper on that. And I'm interested to know your thoughts, especially around behavioral analysis, and having watched, knowing the world before social media, which I do, but very few people younger than me do. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on where do you see it now, what you saw as it was coming in, and where you see that going in the future.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are doing life through this phone, social media.
I call it the prison of screens, but yes.
and they're just going for likes and clicks, and they're not doing life. They're doing life through their phone as opposed to interacting and socializing. COVID has been very hard on two specific personas. Those that are more inspiring, influencing and inducing, they're very outgoing and people-oriented, and those that are more reserved and people-oriented, which is supportive, steady, and shy, is very hard on them because they were not allowed to interact, and that's where they take their energy. That's what they bring to the table. Two personas that really excelled during COVID was that D persona, direct, demanding, decisive, and that C persona is cautious, calculating, conscientious. They got a lot of crap done, and they were happy because they didn't have to work so much with people. So, different environment, I mean, the same situation, but different results from this. Social media, my gosh, we can spend so much time in scrolling, and now it's when these reels first got introduced. They were fun, about TikTok videos. Now it's like if that TikTok doesn't get you in the first few seconds, you're flipping for another one. It's getting crazier. We have more shiny objects in front of us. And it's what I would call SOS, shiny object syndrome. Squirrel.
Exactly.
We get so distracted. It's like, how do you protect yourself from yourself? If you start your day opening up your phone and start looking at the social media, then 2 hours has just passed by. And it's like, oh my gosh, if you go into the YouTube and you're following podcasts, there's just so much content in there. And you just have to give yourself the right to start over, as in, okay, well, if I was to start over, how can I protect myself from myself in social media? See, what's interesting with social media, you're seeing a video and you think it's real. Somebody's filming this, as in you can see an interaction happening. Well, there's a camera there. Is it legit? Is it really something or did they plan the whole thing? So there's a lot of, how did they get that picture? How did they get, and they're good actors, some of them. And
many of them, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And it's like, wow. Now, I enjoy studying and Survivor. It's starting, is it this week? Yeah, it's starting this week. And what I like about Survivor is that you see the persona, the different personalities, under duress, low accumulating stress. It builds. See, but there's a camera there following them all the time. But we don't see that. It's like it's the invisible camera. But there's a crew around them. They're following them at every opportunity. But you're seeing this 1 week at a time. They're like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. This is nonstop for them, as in it's really low feeling stress. So in the week, you're allowed to look at that. Hey, I wonder what's going to happen. Well, their friend just got voted off, and they're ticked off because nobody talked to them. But that anxiety, how do you manage that stress? And I look for patterns. Who's the first one that tends to get voted off the island? Who's the second? Who's the third? Right? Who do they tend to keep? So they always keep the big, strong personas, to build the camp and to win the awards. But then all the reserve members on Survivor, they get together and they turn on them. It's very rare that you see a very dominant, direct, demanding, decisive, determined, unless they win all the awards and they can't get, they get blindsided. Yeah. But who gets voted off first? The big talkers who don't produce. So pattern being predictable. You just get a chance to see it, and then you can analyze, and then you can learn from that. Here's what not to say. In Survivor, there's techniques, there's strategies, but you also need a social game. You don't get to the end unless you have a social game.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the techniques, there's people studying all the episode, all the different awards. There's some people that actually build all these puzzles that you've seen on the show at home, and they practice. And they're good at the puzzles, and they're good at this, and they're good at that because they've been studying it. That's the technical aspect. But nothing will prepare you for actually being on site. That's situational awareness, for you to understand how you're wired, and also know that you need a social game in order to survive them all. So social media, there's TV shows, there's series, there's just an abundance of it, and it's dangerous because you can spend a lot more time binging on all the different platforms, which is Netflix, Crave, Disney Plus. Oh my gosh, there's just so much. And you're not spending a lot of time in learning and reading. Leaders are readers. So just having that appetite of reading 15 minutes a day can get you through 10 books in a year.
Easy, yeah.
Right? So going back to the basics, because it's almost like we went completely on the social media, and it's almost like you need a little adjustment just to come back to living life and not so stress about what people think about you. Just do the next right thing. That's something that Dr. Ohm taught me once. It's just because I was sharing with him, it's like, it just feels like I'm always looking for the next business, the next sale, and because you have bills to pay, you've got payroll to make. And Dr. Ohm said, I know exactly where you are. This is where I was 8 years ago, and this is what Zig Ziglar told me. Whoa, Zig Ziglar, Dr. Ohm,
the top.
JJ,
Yeah,
sweet. What did he say? So you get that information. And I just remember one conversation, Dr. Ohm said, just do the next right thing. And I'm like, well, what is that? Just do the next right thing. Sometimes it's brush your teeth, put your PJs, go to bed. That's the next right thing, as in you can worry yourself to death. And it's just hard.
you can only control what you can control, right?
Yes, have a strong sense of self. It's such a good start point. And then it's like, perfect. Then you'll know how to put barriers around, at least guardrails, so you don't fall off, so that you get to your destination. Because there's so many distractions out there that'll get you sidetracked really fast.
That brings up a good point. It kind of dovetails on the social media thing. Do you think the stunning lack of self-awareness that exists now is a byproduct of social media directly, or are we doing it to ourselves by trying to balance the real live identity with whatever social persona that we've created for ourselves? Does that make sense?
The social media persona that they're pushing out there is like, I don't think you can match it. As in, it's like a lot of people that post on social media, look how great my life is, and it's not.
Yeah, it's just the highlights. They're just posting the highlights.
And now we start comparing each other, and that's the kiss of death.
Yeah,
you can look like when that's a training that we've done for Mary Kay. Mary Kay, which is they're in the direct selling industry. They're directors, and they have a different size of organization of groups. And it's okay to look at another group and another group and to learn. But comparing one group with the other group, like with yours, is a kiss of death. Because you're not wired the same way. The team dynamic is different. And it's, and you can learn, you can get encouraged, you can get motivated, but you shouldn't go to start comparing. Yeah, but it's easy for her because she has this. Yeah, but it's easy for them because they've done that. Yeah, but I would also have a big industry if 300 people came to my unit without me doing anything. So there's some jealousy or there's some comparison, and it's really much a kiss of death, as in just control what you can control. Social media just projects this persona of, wow. And I don't think you can really live up to it. I think it's a facade. And if you take a step back, a lot of people who immerse themselves into that environment probably has a low self-esteem.
Yeah, to begin with.
As in, they don't know the gifts that they have inside of them. They haven't been validated, or they haven't been valorized. They haven't received the recognitions. There's a saying in the speaking industry that your mess is your message. So whatever character building moments that you've lived through your life, that's a mess. Your mess is your message. Your mission, if you so choose to accept it, is to share with others what you've learned. I've always had a hard time in understanding human dynamics or connecting with people or how to start a conversation, how to continue a conversation, how to finish a conversation. That's something that I've experienced, but I have learned how to do it. When I was sent over to Bosnia, I knew the task of a contact handler. I had the mechanics. I had this. But I had to go build a relationship on the people side. And those happen to be my lowest traits that I have. But it's a learnable skill. This smile, that's a learnable skill. I've learned to smile. It's not part of my hardcore DNA. As in, this is the family picture.
Yeah, right. And you're happy. You're happy in that picture, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. My wife asked me one time, says, Jean, are you happy? She said, no. Jean, are you happy? And then my eyes went up. And I said to her, well, as a matter of fact, yes. As a matter of fact, yes. To which he responded, do you mind telling your face? Because the kids thinks you're always mad at them. Show the white pearls. So this is a learnable skill. So as long as we remain teachable and just do the next right thing, it's just the challenge that we have right now. Now, I'm 60. My kids, right, they're 25 to 30. They're in that age. Once they have their own kids, they're going to have a harder time raising them than how my parents raised us. We were raised outside. As in, to punish us, you'd say, go in your room, and you were punished going in your room. Today, if you say to a child, as in, go to your room.
Yeah, thank you. Right.
Because they
punishment is going outside.
Yeah, they have access to so much thing. And what's the age group now for a child to have a phone? Right?
I know they're getting younger every year. I know a handful that should not have them that have them. So
I never had a phone in high school.
Yeah, no.
Right? University? No. It wasn't part. It wasn't. But now, if you don't have a phone, you're weird.
Yeah, you're the outcast.
Right? And it's like, wow, it's changed so much. And the phone has access to the world, to the internet. So how do you control that? There's certain things that a young child should never see. But they have access to so much now that, hey, if you don't have access, then you're not in. Now you're competing to be accepted. So they got to follow the media, or they have to follow the expectation. So, again, for me, if the parents and the child, if they have a strong sense of self, I think that's a good start point, because from there you have some awareness. If not, then you are acluistic, one without a clue, and life can run all over you.
Completely anchorless. Yeah.
It's like when you just have no direction, you lose hope, and then you start going on the dark side, as in, does my life matter? That was a concern for me, for my son and my daughter going to high school, because there'd be kids there that would take their lives. And it's like, what would prompt them to take their lives, when in their teens? So it's scary. Raising a family today compared to when we were raised is challenging. I come from an entrepreneurial family, so we have I grew up in a village, so maybe 200, 300 people in the village. There was more cows than
sure.
But then now we're living in the cities, and that's challenging. Because you can always, if you lose electricity when you're, growing up, yeah, no problem. Like you'd survive. Now it's like if you lose electricity, if you're off the grid, wow, people go crazy.
Yeah,
they go crazy. So,
Yeah, it's a very interesting time, and I noticed this even as I was a kid, and I saw social media becoming just like a thing. I knew that we were the experiment, like my generation was really going to be the experiment with that, and there's a couple people that kind of called it well early on, but we're not far off. The level of the stunning lack of self-awareness. I live in New York City. So I see it amplified just because there's more people here. It's a statistical thing, really, but just generally, I also, and this might kind of go back to the legacy portion of that ladder. I also feel like a lot of people in my generation and the generation below us, many of them aren't getting to the legacy prong of the ladder because a lot of them don't have hope. A lot of them see the world that they're inheriting, and either they're scared, they're completely demoralized, or they just don't see a point. What's the point in me doing why am I recycling? The world's full of trash. Why am I doing this? The pollution's so high. As somebody who studies human behavior, what are the things that anyone could do to start breaking out of those molds or edge themselves toward more self-awareness in the hopes of getting just hope, some hope for the future?
I would, if possible, travel to other countries, go and experience life outside of the United States, outside of Canada. My daughter right now is in Germany, so I've helped her husband to interview. We said, hey, let's turn this into a behavioral based interview, and he did, and
that's awesome.
And then he's working on a NATO base, so he's not in the military, but he supports the Canadian military overseas. And I'm like, at the age of 25, both of you are on an Air Force base, living in Germany. You're 20 minutes from Netherlands. You're a 2-hour drive from downtown Paris. Like, you can visit so many different countries. And as you visit and you experience different cultures, you mature. When I was overseas, when I was in Cyprus, and then you come back from your tour, you mature so much because it's different cultures. You work with the Greeks, the Turks, and all the UN nations that you interact with, that you work with. And in Bosnia, well, you're working with the Croats, the Serbs, the Muslims, and all the different NATO countries that were there. We had anywhere from 5 to 7 different nationalities working at the safe house. And you mature so much because you are so pitying your little problems. And when you start comparing with other people's, and it's like,
mine ain't so bad.
Yes.
Mine ain't so bad in comparison. Yeah.
So it's to experience life outside. A lot of people never had the opportunity to travel outside of the States, outside of Canada. At a young age, Dad took us to Acapulco, 2 weeks in Acapulco in Mexico. And we saw people living on the streets like, oh my gosh, that's different. When growing up, again, Roots was a TV series that was coming out, Roots. And it was past my bedtime, but my dad had sent my brother to wake me up. And he forced me to watch the whole series of Roots. I've never seen a black man. And in our village, no one was black. Everyone's white. Up northern Ontario, I was like, what's that? And then to see the injustice, it leaves a mark of this is wrong. And that was my way of my dad educating me in regards to the world. So seeing it from, because you're isolated in a small village, you never go out, you never go anywhere. But the more we travel outside and to go to the United States, okay, well, every Canadian at one point, I think, will visit Walt Disney sometimes.
Sure.
Right? Or they'll go to Florida because our winters are hard, or Arizona. But you're getting out and you experience a different culture. But leave North America. In Cancun, we have a membership at the Moon Palace. I've never been treated as well as at the Moon Palace. The Hispanic community go out of their way to serve you, and they never, never, never say to you, "You're welcome." You are welcome. They say, "My pleasure." Your pleasure. They have a heart to serve. And their business model that they have in Cancun at that Moon Palace would not work in the States because it'd be too expensive. It would not work in Canada because it'd be too expensive. And you get the chance to go there and spend some time with them and interact, and they share their stories and how they're making a living. The average are not even making $20 US a day working there. So if you have yourself a manicure, a pedicure, a massage, and you give them an extra $5 or an extra $10, or you take a golf cart and they give you a ride and you give them an extra $5, right? It's like, oh my gosh, that they can do so much with that. And I think we're spoiled because, we live off credit cards, but they have cash and they manage more. They get to do more. They're family oriented. And it's experiencing life with a different light. Because you are, and we are, a cluistic, one without a clue. So for your audience to have an opportunity to go and, travel the world, go on an excursion, pack sack, 30 days, areas that are safe. Like I wouldn't necessarily go and do a 30-day excursion in Egypt. You're going to get interrogated as soon as you get to the airport.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
It's even at the hotel. There's a lot of war stories, but there's so many countries out there that it's worth, if you know somebody, to do an exchange. Remember in high school when you do a student exchange and how their whole life changed as seeing the world differently. The francophones going to an anglophone area, an anglophone going to a francophone area. That's another experience. That's a life experience. Seeing it from a different perspective, different cultures. And you'll see that, okay, we have some common points. And maybe your life isn't as hard as you think, or you just take it for granted, everything that you have access to, because we're spoiled. We are spoiled. Go to Africa. They have such a passion for education, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, if you don't have your laptop and a phone, and if you don't have all of these they just have a pen and pencil, a little writing chalkboard. Seeing it from different perspective will get you to appreciate a little bit more what you have, and maybe also assist in how you can make this world a better place before you leave this world.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with all of that. I was fortunate when I was a kid. My parents, we moved around all over the country, so I saw a lot of the country just by nature of moving around. But we would also travel. We'd probably do like one big family trip. We went camping some years. We went international other years.
Camping.
A completely lost pastime, like literally camped across the continental United States. Super fun, great experience, saw a lot of the country. But I always joke about it here in New York. I know people in New York that will talk to you like they're the most worldly person, and then you ask them where they've been, and they're like, I've never left New York. And it's like, for me, Chinatown is not the same as China. Like, Chinatown is great, but I think China might be a little bit more of an accurate representation. I also, for a while, I lived in Nebraska, in the Midwest, in like basically the dead center of the United States. And I still know people there who have never left their city. They just stay there. They might venture just outside, maybe an hour up to Omaha. We lived in Lincoln, but and especially as we were talking about with people becoming more insular because of social media and spending time in their poorly lit room surrounded by a bunch of screens. But I completely agree with you. I always kind of make the argument too that when we really tally up what most people want out of their life, there's usually more overlap than there is differences. And, you go around to enough places and you see family, food, community, those things There's a reason that those things are as important. For me, whenever I would go anywhere or when I want to learn about a culture, food is the first place that I start.
Absolutely. Break bread.
Yeah.
Go and just meet somebody. Hey,
what are they eating? I want to eat it.
I spent a week in Berlin with my son. He wanted to it was his 30th birthday, and he wanted to do a father and son trip, and he picked Berlin, and I'm like, out of the blue, I'm like, never thought
we'd be going there, but here we go.
So I was like, okay. Now, I did not want to drive, meaning that once we're at the airport, we're taking a cab. I don't want to drive. I don't want to rent a car or anything like that. I've done that many times in the UK. It's just too much stress, and it's like, So we take a cab. Now, all the cabs are either syndicated or controlled, as in there's all the same color, regardless of the brand. A Mercedes, a Toyota, you name it, they all have the same color. It's a brand, and I'm like, wow. So we're in the Mercedes, and it doesn't cost you more in the Mercedes than it costs to be in a Primus. It's the same price, as in it's well done. And as we're driving, there's an accident on the highway because all the taxi drivers are well connected to what's happening, and it's a different culture. And because the main highway there was an accident, he was able to divert, and then he was explaining to us what was happening. So he took a different route, and we got there, and it was more scenic. See, a little bit different. If it would have been up in Canada, we would have hit traffic, and then the meter would have kept on going until the traffic is right. And it's like, no, and that one they were just bypassing. They were just doing it differently. Then we got at the hotel, and then it's like, our room was ready before time, and we just spent a lot of time breaking bread with different people at the hotel, and then when we were going out interacting. And you're correct in regards to when you break bread, it's an opportunity to have a conversation. But what do you say to people? So this is a learned skill, and I liked it so much that I've already put it on our website. It's the 10 most effective feel-good ice-breaking questions. If you memorize, like I was told, if you memorize these questions, you will always be able to carry a conversation with someone, any place, anytime. So I memorized these questions. So when you meet somebody for the first time, the first question says, how did you ever get interested in the widget business? So you just reframe it. In Bosnia, when I met this person, we had to build a relationship. He was the godfather of the place. So, and how am I going to build a relationship with this person if he's the godfather? I'm going to be evaluating my ability. And I use that approach. I'm like, I'm just curious. And then it goes through an interpreter, and he comes closer to the mic. Says, okay, you're curious about something. Because you see that question, I'm just curious, your subconscious mind stays open. If you just say that to someone, hey, I'm just curious. Well, what are you curious about? How did you ever get interested in politics? Because he was known as the self-declared mayor of Mostar. He wasn't the mayor, but he just acted like he was.
Yeah.
So I just reframed that question. Hey, I'm just curious. How did you ever get interested in politics? Because you ask that question in the right place, the right time, they'll speak for 10 minutes nonstop. He spoke for 45 minutes with one question. The more they talk, the more you can discern their preferred communication style. So the part of the question will lead to a conversation. The conversation will lead to a relationship, either professional or personal. So I'm very good at asking questions, starting a conversation, discerning where they're coming from. And then the 4 levels is listening, observing, discerning, and speaking. Listening to what they're saying, observing their mannerisms, discerning which quadrant that they're speaking, and then speak to that language, firm, fun, friendly, or factual. So it's a system that everyone can actually use. But if people want to have that questionnaire, that 10 most effective feel-good ice-breaking question, is actually on our website. It's free. They can download it. Not a problem. But that will help people to have a conversation. Because when you're at the kitchen table, when you're breaking bread, what are you talking about? Get curious. Ask them about how did you ever get interested in podcasting? You can't answer that with a yes or no. We're going to have a conversation.
It requires dialogue, yeah.
what's different between your podcast, James, and other people's podcasts? Well, now I'm focusing on you. So all the 10 questions is a good lead-up question to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. We will never have enough time in an hour to ask all 10 questions. But they're meant to be icebreakers, feel-good, icebreaking questions. And the more you talk, the more you can discern their preferred communication style and then model it so that your message connects with them by design and not by chance. So those are learnable skills. And it's those interpersonal skill sets that this new generation is missing right now because they're not learning that. They're just learning how to do life in front of their phone. And they're lacking those social skills. And it's going to, whomever masters social skills in the next 10 to 15 years will thrive in life. If they don't, they're going to be surviving because that self-awareness is going to be so key for them to make a difference, to not lose hope, that they know exactly what they were here for.
Well, I think too, there's like, when I think back to the books that got me into neurolinguistic programming, or, I mean, even not even neurolinguistic programming, just like basic customer client relations, how to win friends and influence people. That's probably, that's a book that I probably tell everyone to read if they are pursuing any type of field in communications. But would there be any other books that people who are interested in these things would be like good starting points to lay groundwork to?
You've got the good one right off the bat.
Behavior.
As in, right off the bat, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie is a classic, I have it. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. That's a key one. And if you want to learn more about human dynamics, interactions, social media wise, I would follow the behavioral panel. The behavior panel. Dr. Phil studies them. These are 4 people, 4 subject matter experts, 3 Americans, and
I'm tangentially related to Scott Rouse. I have mutual friends who are very good friends with Scott Rouse. Yeah, that's hilarious. But yes, he's
I've
great.
been listening to them. How I got trained is similar in regards to when reading people, you have to read in clusters. And they share the same thing, as in perfect. We're from the same school or a similar school. I'm not at their level in the sense of I had a 10-year window, 5 to 10-year window within human intelligence. They have a career in it. So when someone wants me to come on board and to debrief or to interview election candidates, I say no. I can do it for myself, but they are better at it because they are still
their whole
it.
Focus. Yeah,
because you have to have a baseline before you can, and we don't read people's mind. We just report on observable behaviors, and these behaviors are, here are the tendencies. Now we blink at a certain rate. What's the normal rate? Well, we have to discern what's the normal rate. What's before we can say that you've increased, you're higher, you're lower. They did a little bit of debrief on the first interview with Trump and Harris, and before, during, so throughout, and the questions that was asked by the journalists, and were there leading questions for one party and not for the other. So they have no stake in anything. They just share the information so that you can make an informed decision on your own. And I like them. As in, if there's one group that has read more books on this and studied more on this, it would be those 4 gentlemen. So it's worthwhile to subscribe to their channel. Some of the interviews that they have, like whether it's criminal and I don't have so much interest in, But when it's interviewing high profile events, I like to be informed, because a lot of the media, whether it's the CNN, the ABC, CBC, they all have their little
narrow pocket of audience. Yeah.
Well, and then you just, you know what? You get more info from the individual podcast out there, because they do the research. They bring in the subject matter experts. There's a gentleman, you know, he's a former, it's not Green Beret. I think it's Navy SEALs. But the people that he brings that you would never have access to. Oh, here's the guy that actually was in the room before Obama got shot. Oh, here's the one that was in that chopper when he went down. Like, access to these people that we would never have access. And you have an hour to 2 hours. So you don't have the little blurb. You actually have the whole, and you just get a better idea of what actually happened for real and how it got spinned, so that you don't fall prey to the media, because who owns the TV, the media? Who owns the newspapers? Like, it's so hard now to discern. So you have to do your own. You have to follow your own subject matter experts just to get a sense of what's actually happening on the ground. In the intelligence branch, we would look at all the media. So we had all the classified agencies that would provide their information, and then we'd look at open source. And there was CNN would, you know, project a certain way, and CTV, kind of the television network, or the CBC, kind of a broadcast corporation, they would, you know, provide information a certain way with a certain spin or twist to it. But there's others that would be very generic. They would just basically give you the news, and then you can make your own opinion, versus them telling you about what's actually happened.
Interpretation
the facts. And then from there, you make your own decision. We don't have a lot of that's left out there, and it's hard. It's hard to really know and to make an informed decision. Like, when I was working overseas in Bosnia, human intelligence is one collecting platform. You have imagery intelligence, so they can take pictures from satellites. Okay, that's imagery intelligence. Signals intelligence, they can listen into the conversations of people. Yeah. Not a problem. I specialize in human intelligence, so that's boots on the ground. And then when they have all this information, the analysts can discern what's actually happening, and from there inform the commanding officer so they can make an informed decision as to where to put the resources to maintain the peace or to keep the peace. And it's just one little piece. So human intelligence does provide that interaction, that one-on-one, and it just provides you more context or content to actually know what's actually happening on the ground, because a picture can only do a certain thing, show you that picture. And then you have to discern, you have to analyze. But once you have that people dynamic and the technical dynamic, and you put that together, you have an intelligence piece that is needed. And quite often we don't have all the information to make an informed decision. So find your source that you like. It's not necessarily what's on the TV. It's more of following different people that got fired from their
in many cases, yeah, exactly, yeah,
Fox
and what they do on their own, or who picks them up, or what podcast
they have bigger daily following,
yeah,
than CNN now. It's like, wow. So, and you just get a different perspective on things, so that you can make an informed decision what's best for you moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. It is interesting to see media kind of be reshaped as it has been. But I also just feel too, it's like, I think people are finally starting to catch on to the fact that all these major TV companies, their business is selling advertising space. And our looking at it is what allows them to charge money for it. So they're willing to almost do anything to get us to look at theirs as opposed to someone else's. And anymore. It's just like, what ridiculous thing can we put out right now that's going to make people change the channel to our station or turn the radio to our station?
How many times have you seen a title? Oh, that's interesting. And you click it, and not to get any content inside of it that fits the title. Oh, wait a minute. Huh. There's like, it just got that click with, and then all the little advertisement that comes from it. So,
you know, it is something that's always bothered me, even well before social media played a factor in it. But, yeah, I've always been of the mindset too, is like, if there's a major story that I want to follow, I want to read what all the big sources say about it, just to see what each of them are saying about it. And what I usually find is that the things that are true are the things that are common. All the stuff that isn't common among the articles are usually where they start to sway or try and push their opinion. But that alone is like, I don't want to just read American news. I also want to read BBC. I also want to read what they're writing about the States and Europe and Asia and elsewhere, just because that they're looking and analyzing our situation from a completely different perspective, which I might not agree with, but it would just be enlightening to know how viewed through their lens. Al Jazeera, yeah.
Al Jazeera. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's like, that's good. And it's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, I never heard of it that way. I'm like, how come that wasn't reported? Huh. So it's just giving you, just to be informed. You have to have the different sources for you to make an informed decision, for sure.
So I wanna make sure we talk a bit in detail about the retired spy, if you've got the time. I don't want to keep you too long if you got to get off.
What would you like to talk about? The retired spy.
Well, I would really love for you to tell people about what you do with the retired spy. We've kind of been touching on it, but kind of just as a resource, I want people to know that it exists. I'll obviously share these links in the description, but I've got the site pulled up here for the people who are watching the show. This is how you're using your skills out of military.
There's free resources. It's a bilingual website. We're about to launch also a membership website where I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in regards to how you can utilize these skill sets in your business or in your personal life. Things that I've learned along the way. The acronym FORM. When you meet somebody for the first time, what should you talk about? Well, F is for family, O is for occupation, R is for relationships, or recreation, and then M is for message, to leave a message, or to discern their motivation. So every time I met somebody working overseas in Bosnia, I may not start with family, but I'll start with O as an occupation. Hey, I'm just curious, what line of work are you in? Right? And then they talk about their work, and if it's like, wow, I may go with recreation. Sounds like you're very busy. What do you do to recharge and just to have fun? And then you'll find out about their hobbies. Is that a family? So I go back to family. And then motivation is what would motivate them for us to continue our conversation, or if I want to leave them a message. So the acronym FORM, family, occupation, recreation, motivation, gives you an idea of how to engage and how to exchange with people without... because for us, we're collecting information to make an informed decision if this person can assist us in finding out what's happening on the terrain, on the ground. And it's just curiosity. Taking a flight, I'll be flying down to Atlanta probably in October. It's our Thanksgiving weekend up here in Canada, so we have some family members down there. We're going to go and visit. And if I have somebody that's sitting right beside me, and if I feel chatty, I may ask them. It's very rare we ask them their name. Hey, what's your name? No, we don't tend to start that way. Are you? Is this business or pleasure? Right? Oh, what line of work are you in? Those would be and then just get interested. Just get interested in their life. If I'm not chatty and somebody asks me, what do you do? I'll say I'm in industrial waste management. And they'll say, industrial waste management? Yeah, you know the guy behind the truck that picks the garbage? Yeah. And that's about it for the flight. So if I'm chatty, if I'm not chatty, right? So it's just, but my wife, Julie, my gosh, as in, a stranger's just a friend she hasn't met. So she'll be just, and people just confess to her.
My wife's that's funny. My wife's the same way. She
and it's like
the same stuff.
And then she absorbs everything. It's like, oh my God. It's like, it's not your problem. So, okay, so that person is bringing the ashes of his father. Why would that? It's like, okay. But then she just absorbed that whole. One time we arrived at Atlanta, and I told her before, don't make eye contact with people on this flight. Just don't make eye contact. When we arrived at Atlanta, she was totally lifeless. And I said, you made eye contact with people, didn't you? And then she says, yes. Like she's confessing, yes. How many? 3. 3. And 3 people just downloaded all their problems or vomited all their problems to them. So, oh my gosh, that's so funny. But now as I know this, I can assist in helping out so that she can manage this. Like if I know that, hey, we're going to be very, very tight to make our connecting flight, I'm able to say to her, okay, honey, I know you need to go to the washroom, but it's going to be a very, very tight connection, so we need to go in D mode as soon as we come out. And she'll know exactly what that means. D mode, yeah, D mode, dominant, direct, demanding, let's go. Follow me. And I'm like a football player. I'm clearing the area. Because once we get at the gate, because people don't walk in a straight line at the airport. Yeah. They got their phone or their tablet, and they're going left and right and left. It's like, why can't it be like a highway? Anyways, we get there, right? Because there's going to be a washroom near the gate, or inside the plane, you'll be allowed to go to the. So we just made it. We were the last one. They closed the door, and then she turned to me and she goes, "Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that we need to go in D mode. That really helped me." Because she would have felt guilty. If we would have gone to the washroom and then we would have missed the gate, she would have felt it wasn't her fault. We had to de-ice. And it took longer to de-ice the plane, and we would have not made our connection. So it helps when you have that awareness when you're traveling. So the retired spy, I never wanted to be the retired spy. It's just that I got branded the retired spy. When I was working overseas, they couldn't pronounce my name. They couldn't pronounce Jean, but they could say John Jack. Hey, John Jack. And they thought they were bilingual. Then a British colleague was in the safe house. We were alone in the safe house, just the two of us. And the British colleague goes, "Hi, JJ." I connected the dots, Jean-Jacques. I turned. I answered. I got branded. I got branded JJ. JJ became an operative name. And the contacts loved it because it's only 2 letters. It's JJ. It's easy to remember. So it became a working name. When I left the military and I started my speaking career, and we were at networking events, and they say, who's that guy over there? Oh, that's JJ. He's a former spy. So people they love for some reason to say that. He's a former operative, and he used to be a spy. Careful, don't talk to him. He has a secret, or he'll blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, sure, exactly.
So it became that I was known for JJ as the retired spy. And it's because the first time I tried it out, I said, "Hi, my name is JJ, and I'm a recovering spy." That's how I opened my speaking.
That's awesome.
Right? Thinking, it's funny. And there was 2 coaches in the audience. This goes, no, recovering, that's alcoholism, that's negative. You're not the recovering spy. You're the retired spy. And the fact that you retired proved that you succeeded in the spy business. Like, they got more excited over it. And I just shied away from it from the longest time. But it's like, if you don't brand yourself, somebody else will.
Yeah.
So I took the brand, and then I started working with it. I don't know if you can see this, but then I was like, let's have that little spy dude. Oh, there's a magnifying glass. So decoding human capital. There's 4 quadrants for your eyes only. So I just kept the branding and kept playing with it. I designed a decoder coin. So there's
Love that.
Decoder coin to decode one's preferred communication style. So clients that have this as a business card, but it's like they go, oh, and then they can look at it and they can discern one's preferred communication style by using a decoder coin versus the decoder ring. So you have a decoder coin. And it's just little props like that people, touch points for people to remember the model and know what to say in times of need. So it became a branding. So we're on year 25. So we did a revamp of our website, French and English. We've got your podcast will be showcased also, and links provided to your platform on there. People will be able to review it. There's probably going to be a blog on it, as there's probably going to be an article written on it. So we have a team now that everything is we're standardizing we're just documenting everything. And just to equip them, because the spy industry has always been very captivating for people. And you can have the James Bond, you can have the MI6, you can have Uncle series. You just got so many series that what media projects out there. And it might not really be real. There's some aspects into the cool gadgets that's there. There's spy museums. Oh, if you ever have a chance, my friend, if you ever have a chance, go to the Spy Museum in Washington. Oh, yeah. And give yourself at least half a day and do all the activities that you can when you're there. Before they moved it to that locale, I went there, and you can take a cover story. You can take a persona, and let's say you're Andropov Popov. And Andropov Popov, you're going to go through some checkpoints, and you're going to be challenged, and you have to remember the lie. And then there was 8 stations. I got killed on station 3 because every checkpoint, you get additional information, and then you have to build on the lie, and you have to remember. So when you go to the next checkpoint, you're going to be challenged on this, and so there's a timeline where you have to answer. And it took just too much time on checkpoint number 3. So, but it's a good place to get a chance to understand about branding and identity and the whole mystique. It's cool, it's sexy, and it's exclusive. And that's what we'd like to do on our website, the things to be cool, sexy, and exclusive, and the type of events. You can even go to that museum and take part of undercover, like in real time, with actor players, role players. And you're going to go and walk down and find some evidence. And there's just so much because there's always been something captivating about that. Kids love this. There's a lot of memorabilias. There's a lot of authors that wrote books on stories that it's not known in the general population. But it's worthwhile, because I went to the Spy Museum in Berlin, and it's not quite the same as the one in Washington, D.C. has a lot more. But give yourself half a day for sure, a good 4 hours, to really absorb this, and maybe even share your experience on your podcast.
No, that actually, a buddy and I were talking about going to DC to a couple of the aerospace museums. He and I have done a bunch of flying. He's a pilot. We've done a bunch of little flying trips. That he would also be super into. This is absolutely going on the list.
Imagery intelligence. The first platform they use for imagery intelligence? Pigeon.
With a camera, film?
Yes.
In the camera, yeah.
Yes, I have pictures of it too.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
It was a little pigeon, a little camera, and how it evolved. Then it was air balloons. There's just, you see the whole imagery intelligence, how the whole thing evolved from one thing leads to another. Signals intelligence, the same thing. Human intelligence, who was the best at it? Who was the best female operative? How did she get captured? So,
I just did an episode. It just went live yesterday about DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, who developed a lot of the super cutting edge stuff for the CIA at the beginning of CIA's crazy stuff. I guess the technology has always blown my mind. Even looking at some of the insect-sized drones that they had in the 60s is mind-blowing that they were doing that then. But one of my favorite stories of American spycraft, at least, is of Edward Lansdale. Do you know Edward Lansdale?
Does not ring a bell.
He was a guy who was in advertising, who was in like media, but was also, he worked in the very early iterations of the CIA. And one of his famous operations that he conducted was this psychological operation on a group of rebel folks in Thailand or the Philippines. But basically, he learned the local lore, and he played into the local lore.
Okay.
And there's a thing in the local lore there called an aswang, which is like a vampiric creature of the night. And it's the local legend is just baked into the lore of that culture. So they abducted one of the guys from this rogue outfit, drained his blood, make it look like a vampire, sucked his blood out, and all the guys who were in the woods hiding, they all came running out because they didn't want to get caught. But that was like the first real. It's the first moment for me where I was like, oh, intelligence is more about understanding the psychology of your opponent than it is, and really, as you're doing with the retired spy, that's what most of life is understanding the psychology of the people around you and of yourself.
Everyday Spy. If you Google Everyday Spy,
Andy Bustamante, yeah,
he's good.
Yeah,
Very, very good. Very knowledgeable. His wife, both of them together, powerhouse. And because I was in the military intelligence, CIA is not the same. It's because they have access, they have money. Canada did not, in the military intelligence, we didn't have that capability or the funds or the organization to do this back then when I was at that time. But he's very, very fascinating to listen to, and to very knowledgeable. Phil Craft, he doesn't like he's not going to tell you the secrets of Phil Craft.
Of course.
But he does provide opportunities for team building using the spy platform as learnable skills. When you're doing a recce, what are you looking for? And how can that transit into the business side of things? So, you're looking to purchase a company. Okay, well, have you done your due diligence? So it's one thing on paper, but it's another thing of cultivating a source within the company and the employee and getting the insider information. So he's another gentleman that has done very well of exiting one and starting a second career and making a difference, of being able to provide the corporate skill sets, not to be taken advantage of, because corporate espionage is active.
Yeah, it's super real. Yeah.
China's very, very active. They delegate a lot of resources. We had an agency here, a company here, IT company, Nortel. And then fast forward, Nortel closed, and they sold a building. And government, because they had a building there, and they said, well, we're going to force the National Defense to move there. So when National Defense went there, and they gutted the place, and they found listening devices over and over and over.
Yeah. And
Yahweh was created based on a lot of the content taken from Nortel.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a
whole industry. Yeah.
Corporate espionage is real. It's there. They're looking to get an edge, and they'll use any means possible to get an edge. So whether it's a high tech or a low tech, I've been in the low tech side of things. As in, it's all about building relationships, getting through the doors, and then it doesn't matter if you have a fingerprint or eye, or you build a relationship with a person that has access.
They'll let you walk right in. Yeah.
Then they'll take whatever the information is required, whether it's a photocopy, whether it's your actual document, whether it's putting it on a USB, and you get the information. So you can do all high tech, not a problem. I just focus on the low tech, which is the human dynamics. Because once you have a dysfunction or a ticked off employee, well, you haven't built
all that technology. Yeah, all that technology can't stop one nefarious employee.
Oh no, it's very, feasible. So the whole thing in regards to the retired spy, it was a brand identification. So we went with the retired spy. We did some work. Geneviève Rochon did a phenomenal job in getting the brand. As a sole entrepreneur, 25 years in the business, we had about 4 companies build our websites. And I think this is the first time that this company actually gets it, as in we are all about equipping people for works of service. So you have a divine assignment in your life. You just don't know what you're wired for. So by providing people an awareness and equipping that person for their preferred works of service, whether it's in law enforcement, we work with them. Whether it's Revenue Canada, we work with them. Whether it's the Ottawa University where I teach, the program that I teach is influencing and leading others in times of need. So how do you influence? How would you lead people? Well, based on the personas, you would do it at least 4 different ways. So if you don't have a model of reference, you'll lead people based on how you are wired. And that may represent maybe just 10% general population.
Right.
So can you lead in a different form? Sometimes you have to be in front of the group. Sometimes you have to be in the center of the group. Sometimes you have to be in the back of the group, making nobody's left behind. And sometimes you got to have to be on the side of the group, a little bit aloof, but you see the front, the center, and the back, making sure that everybody's in the right place at the right time. So it's a different leadership approach to influencing and leading others. There's 4 different styles of leadership. You can lead directly, inspirationally, supportively, or cautiously in times of need. But a leader is not one who looks behind to see who's following them. A leader is one who knows the environment they're in and adapts his or her leadership styles in that environment in order to move the group ahead. And that's the value of having a model of reference. Same thing, if they go on our website, you can print out a document. I think it's an 8 or 9 page document on the 4 temperament model of human behavior. If you don't have a model of reference, use that one and start using it. Teach it. It's all there. It's open source, so they can use it and apply it, whether it's in business or their personal life. I do believe that people will have a disadvantage in life if they do not have a model of reference. But by having it, my gosh, your career is going to be different, and your personal relationships at home is going to also be different, because you understand that people don't do things to you. They do things to themselves, and sometimes you just get in their way, and that's what creates the boom. Yeah.
So, and would you say like that's the utopian for all the work that you're doing with Retired Spy is to just empower and equip people with these skills and abilities?
Absolutely. It's our...
like that's the legacy you're trying to build?
It's the assignment. It's increasing people's awareness that when communication breaks down, and it will, blame the process, not the people. And it's as simple as, you don't take things personal. And the Retired Spy has that little...
my bad.
Sexy exclusiveness
there we go.
that people are looking for. And they get a chance to go there, and now they're curious. And then when they get a chance to see this, oh my gosh, I wish I had this when I first got started.
Yeah, I'm as far back as you could go, yeah.
So, well, you've got the right to start over with the information you have today. I've discerned that your past does not dictate your future. Your past prepares you for your future, but it does not dictate. You have the right to start over with the information you have today. And with that, you just start with yourself. There's resources out there. There's assessments that you can take. There's courses you can take. By all means, just have an appetite. Read a little bit more. Find the model that you like and master it. Put in the hours. If you like Myers-Briggs, fantastic. It'll put you in 16 categories. It was designed for clinical application. So if that's what your line of work is, that would be a model to use. That 360 degrees, that's a good tool for the first 12 months to understand how people see you. That's not the real you, because it's the persona that you feel you need to be in order to be successful in that environment. But initially, you get a good overview of how people are seeing you, because you cannot be aware of something until you're first made aware. So that awareness should help you, assist you in how to fit and to remove an objection before the objection comes up. So it's a good advantage. And if people have more questions, then they can click on book a call with JJ. It's free, it's 30 minutes. And it's available for anybody. You'll see my calendar, and we can set up a time for us to connect and assist if we can in regards to assisting them, whether it's a career path or whether it's a character building moment with a family member.
Listen, the real value to understanding this stuff, and it's definitely the reason that I got interested in it, is it's applicable everywhere. And I've worked in a bunch of different industries. Every one of those industries, I've had to use those skills. I've had to and slightly adapt my particular approach normally to a particular setting, and I suffer in the times when I have not done that, as we all do. This is why it's an important thing to understand. And again, especially I see what you do as such a valuable thing right now, because we need self-awareness now more than I can remember at any point in my lifetime. And it's just cool to see you out there doing it and making it so accessible and palatable. You know, a lot of this stuff people might think it's above their head, and it's really not. This is stuff that every person can understand, every person can utilize, and, improve your situation, whatever that is.
Oh, yeah. Research indicates that a child's preference is already set by the age of 4 to 5.
Wow.
So if you understand the child's preference, you can protect that child and help that child grow.
Yeah, cultivate.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I love that. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much again for coming on here. This has been a super cool conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. I'll have all of the reference links in the description below. Any final parting words you want to leave the listeners with before we end it?
Oh, I would just repeat that last statement there, that when communications breaks down, and it will, because it's just a matter of time, you want to blame the process and not the people. That people don't do things to you, they do things to themselves. And give them grace, give them the opportunity for them to be understood, not misunderstood.
Love that. All right. Thank you so much again, everybody. We'll catch you next time. And just we'll stay on 1 second after we're done recording, so all this stuff can upload. All right. We'll catch you all later.
This has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. The end. With your host, James Oliva. Executive producers, Clint G and James Oliva. That's obnoxious. Sound design, mix, and master by James Oliva. Literally no one cares. For more Totally Legitimate Business, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Totally Legitimate Business, or add us on TikTok at TLBpod. When will this end? Thank you for listening. Now get back to work. Move it along, buddy.